welcome to the conversation. It's your girl, Miss Moi. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm sitting here with family. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Richard Samuels, and I'm just glad to be here, glad to be back with my little sister, Ms. Moi, and just really looking forward to sharing with you this afternoon.
Yeah. I wanted to bring you back on the conversation because I know we sat down and spoke with you before just about your past, your journey, but I wanted people to understand not only your past, but also where you're going and what you're doing. So tell us a little bit about your experience and where you've been so we can know why you do what you do.
Okay. So, of course, the last time I was here, I talked mainly about my time in prison, having spent 26 years incarcerated, and basically come home, and we talked about the trials and tribulations of all the things that I had to go through in order to try to find employment, those type of things once I came home. And now I'm here to kind of share with you what happens after that.
Yeah.
To talk a little bit about my organizations and what I hope to do here for the city of Indianapolis, due to the things that I experienced while I was incarcerated.
Phenomenal. Now, when you came home initially, what was that first transition like for you to get to the place where growing Indy even came about?
It was difficult. I mean, I think the last time I was with you, I talked a little bit about when I first came home, all the doors that had closed and that were shut for me in terms of employment and opportunities. And so it was interesting, the people that I met along the way. And the one thing that I did learn during this journey was the power of relationships. That was just one of the big life lessons that I definitely needed to learn. And so having met HB or Harold Bell and his Radio Next TV radio station, he asked me to go on and talk a little bit about my experience. Had an opportunity to do that. He got a great response from the time that I spent on the radio show, and asked me to do my own radio show, which became the Growing Indy Reentry radio show, talking about reentry. So having been able to secure that platform was really significant for me, because it gave me an opportunity not only to bring city officials and other individuals onto the show to talk about the plight and the difficulties and the barriers of reentry, but it also gave me a platform where I could bring in individuals who had previously been incarcerated as well to share their stories. And everyone has a different story, everyone has a different journey, and being able to do that really just warmed my heart, and I really was appreciative for that time and that platform.
So within that period, what made you decide not only am I going to use my voice to express my experience, but it's time to get in the community and do certain things?
Well, I had been thinking about community efforts for quite some time, and of course, like I said before on my previous show, that I changed my life and I changed my thinking while I was incarcerated. So when I came home, I was already in a position where my mindset was different, and that I wanted to do something not only for myself but for community. As you grow and as you mature in life, you begin to realize that it's not about you, that it's more about other people. One of the major books that really helped me change my life was The Purpose-Driven Life. And the first line in The Purpose-Driven Life was, "It's not about you." And so I kind of took that to heart and basically dove off into trying to see how much I could aid and assist other people.
And so as you were doing that through the community, which kudos to you, because not everyone can do that, right? Sometimes when we are in rough situations, tough situations, we just kind of get shut down, and we're not only not able to help ourselves, but others, we struggle as well. So what are some of the things that you did to kind of bridge the gap between regular civilian life and reentry?
Well, I mean, of course, having gone through the criminal justice system for so long, reentry was a big deal for me. What I did understand about the city of Indianapolis was that there was something that used to be called pre-release. And pre-release was an opportunity for you to kind of get back to yourself as you were coming back into the world. So what they did was they allowed you to wear your street clothes. They gave you money. You could have money in your pocket. These are the things that you couldn't do while you were incarcerated as far as in prison. But pre-release was like 180 days before you were about to be released. And so it was smart. You know, it was a way that you could get reacclimated to society. You know, like I said, your street clothes, you had your own money. You could do, you know, on your visits, you know, you had a lot more freedom of movement and, you know, the things that you were doing in terms of on your way home. When unfortunately, pre-release was stopped years ago. And so when I was released this time, there was no pre-release. And this is something that I've been advocating for quite some time, policy and politically, that pre-release needs to be brought back because there needs to be a step-down process for individuals that are coming out of incarceration. Right now what's happening is you're here, and then they throw you back into society.
So this was like a transition, right?
Exactly,
okay.
Exactly. It was like a transition from the hardcore prison time, and it stepped you back to, okay, things are not as difficult, you got a little bit more freedom, you know, give you an opportunity to get into programming, looking for your driver's license, trying to make sure that you have your documents, your birth certificate, those type of things, these important things that you're going to need when you hit the ground. And so now they don't too much have that. And so when you get out, I know one of the most difficult things that I experienced was I had $6,000 worth of traffic tickets. Because of course, when you're in the life, you don't care about a traffic ticket. What you're going to do is come out to your car and get this off my windshield. You know what I mean? You throw it away. Well, those fines and fees will add up and they follow you.
Yeah.
Of course, now when you're trying to do the right thing, of course, now you've got to reconcile all of these, you know, these fines and fees. And so that was one of the difficult times. That was one of the relationships that I really, really appreciate. Our state representative, Robin Shackelford, and I got together. She authored a bill that would allow people to have their suspended license kind of put on hold. There's this thing that's called a hardship license, but a lot of times the hardship license will only allow you to go to and from work, period. And many people don't even qualify for it. So most of the people who have suspended licenses, who have all these fines and fees, there's nothing they can do it. And so if you're asking me to get a job, you're asking me to do all these other things, and I don't want to go back to jail, but most of the time what we're going to do is we're going to get behind the wheel of a car in order to make sure that we can do the things that are necessary to take care of our families.
Right.
And so it was a kind of a catch-22, and people were getting something called TRVs, which is being rule violations, technical rule violations, the TRVs. And a lot of people were being sent back to prison because of technical rule violations.
And what is that? And
that's basically anything that you do that is out of what you're supposed to be doing. So in other words, if I have a dirty drop, or if I'm driving while suspended, if I just get pulled over by the police, even randomly, I could just be in a car as a passenger. If I get pulled over, they could basically utilize their technical rule violation and violate me and send me back to prison. And so you have to be very, very careful about what you're doing when you are released and when you're out here navigating the world.
Wow. Wow, I didn't know that.
Yes. Yes.
I had no idea. So you come home, you realize there is a lot that's going on different, of course. You get on the air, you're like, I have a message to give the world, and you're like, now it's time to help. What are some of the organizations that you were a part of before you decided to really grow your own?
Well, when you say organizations, like I was sharing with you earlier, it was more so relationships.
Okay.
One of the first people that I interviewed on my show was Judge Gaither. And Judge Gaither is just really, really a great guy. He's in our juvenile criminal justice system. He's been a judge for a number of years and has done really great work in the city of Indianapolis. But, you know, we used to have conversations, and I really enjoyed interviewing him because he basically gave it to you straight, you know, and he always is someone who's willing to advocate for our young people, even though he's a judge, you know, and so he still realizes that our young people do have positive things to provide, and so you know, having conversation with him. One of my other interviews was with of course, our Marion County Clerk, Ms. Myla Eldridge, Trellis Evans of Goodwill, just a number of people who really gave me an opportunity to see that my life not only could be different, but it could be rich and full, you know, just by listening to the things that they were talking about, the ideas that they were moving forward, and the things that they were thinking that was most important for the city as well. And so I kind of fell into that group and that little clique of individuals that, okay, how do we make our city better? So the Growing Indie Group was built from Growing Indie LLC and Growing Indie Radio Show. And we became a think tank. And a think tank in terms of all of the people that were coming on the show, we started talking about, you know, how can we do better? How can we make this reentry situation better? And, you know, we started, you know, brainstorming on how to do that. And we came up with a lot of alternatives. You know, we had some events. We did a lot of good work. You were there, you know, during those radio show days, and,
yes.
Kind of saw all the people that were coming in. And, you know, we had state representatives, city county councilmen, people who were, their whole efforts were about reentry. And, we got a lot of good information and kind of like excelled from there, and then became the Growing Indie Group once we amassed a lot of individuals who were representative of the community.
Awesome. And so with the radio show, with the connections, with the relationships, what is Growing Indie, what is the mission?
Okay. Our mission is to provide information, education, resources, and training to individuals and communities in various stages of reentry, recovery, and rebuilding. So not only do we deal with reentry, we also deal with people in recovery. Of course, while I was incarcerated for those 26 years, I was in the throes of my 12 years of addiction as well. And so recovery is important as well. I'm also a recovery coach, a trainer of trainers in that aspect as well. And then in terms of rebuilding, I think that, you know, any and everyone is in some stage of rebuilding, some stage of recovery, and some stage of reentry. We all are recovering from something.
Yeah.
And so I really feel like no matter who you are, at some points innocence is lost. And then once that innocence is lost, you're recovering from something. You know, when you get that surprise that there is no Santa Claus, there is no Easter Bunny, you know what I mean? All of those things, it's like you got to recover from that. And you got to recognize that you got, you know, some things to do in order to be part of the real world.
Yeah.
I was really surprised at how difficult reentry is in terms of people and relationships. I thought the hard part was behind me once I had done the time.
Yeah.
And when I came home, I said, oh, okay, well, now I'm gonna hit the ground running and everything's gonna be easy, everything's gonna be gravy. But it was not. You know, there were so many obstacles, there were so many relationships that I thought it was like this, only to find out it was like that. You know, and realizing that I had to be very careful of who I affiliated myself with. I had to be very careful who I brought into my organizations, because there was just a lot of things that could happen. Not like, you know, people were doing things intentionally, but as you begin to grow and as you begin to move forward in whatever it is you do, people come and the knives start coming out and you got to watch your back, and, you know, people get jealous, and it's like, wow.
And it could be the same people that you've known forever.
Forever, and it's and the people that smile in your face. You know, a lot of people. I put a post out and I talked about the backstabbers, and people were like, "Man, you know, who are you talking about?" And it was interesting because it's the very people that were stabbing me that called me up and said, "Well, who was that post for? Why did you say that?" You know, and so I try now to. I'm very scarcely on Facebook.
Okay.
And when I do go on Facebook, I go on with usually a positive message, because I had to learn that if you get in a debate with somebody on Facebook,
Woo!
it can turn ugly.
Yeah.
And I mean, it can make you look like the bad guy just because you're standing on your position or your opinion.
Absolutely.
And so I realized that the best thing for me to do in a lot of situations was to read a post and to keep it moving, you know, and to not even respond because, you know, and then of course I had other people in my ear saying, you know, you've got to be very careful of who you get into it with on Facebook, because it can taint your career or what you're trying to do, and a lot of people don't understand that.
It can mess up what you're doing,
right? And
you're simply just trying to say how you feel
exactly.
about whatever,
exactly.
But the aftermath can be major. Why do you think there's such a disconnect when it comes to reentry? We talked about relationships being different when you got out, people not being receptive to you as far as jobs and opportunities. What is it that we need to do to say, hey, this is our brother, this is our sister, this is the same person that this was before. We need to just let them back into society.
Right,
like, what is missing there? Well,
I think, and that's a great question, because I think that reentry today does not address the individual. It addresses the group.
Okay.
And so a lot of people feel like, you know, reentry should be this one-stop shop. Okay, we get a person, we surround them with individuals, and we provide them with all the different things they need. What people haven't taken into consideration is that individual, when you put them in the middle of a circle, and you try to help them in so many different ways at one time, it's too much.
Okay.
When we come home, one of the major things that I've been advocating for is that I think that every person coming home from incarceration needs to be able to have someone to talk to. They need to have a mental health professional that they can unload all of this trauma and all of this post-traumatic stress that they've dealt with, get that out of their system, and then you can help them. Because if you're trying to help them and they're still mentally unstable because of where they've come from, you're not really helping them at all. You're kind of putting a stay on the results, and then all of a sudden, it's almost like, okay, if someone comes home tomorrow, I can get them a job. I can get them a job anywhere. Everybody's hiring. You know, if a person's not working, it's usually because they don't want to. That's what people say. But what it is that they're not mentally ready, because even if I give them a job, the major thing about having a job is not getting the job, it's keeping the job.
That's right.
And if you can't keep the job based upon your mental stability or instability, then that's the problem. And so, a long story short is that reentry needs to be more tailored to a personal plan for individuals. Because so when I came home, I had a decent support system, and so you wouldn't address me and my concerns the same way you would address someone who has no support system, who needs transportation, who needs bus tickets, who needs, you know what I mean, letters of support and those type of things. Whereas me, you know, when I came home, I had I had 2 associate's degrees. I had access to a vehicle that I could use to go back and forth. And so you wouldn't have to have put as much into me as you would have to put into someone who doesn't have the same support system.
Does your education help you, though, or benefit you if you're in a re-entry position? Now, this is something I've been wanting to know for a while. Do the certifications, the degrees, all of that, do they matter?
They do.
Okay.
And when I say they do, it matters in the field that you're going into.
Okay.
What I found was I got more respect, you know, because it's one thing to come home and tell your story about, you know, yeah, I've been incarcerated, yeah, I've tried to turn my life around, yeah, I've done this and that. What they want to hear and what people want to understand is, okay, how did you do that? Well, it was a long, daunting process. It wasn't like I turned a switch and all of a sudden everything was wonderful. I had to go and seek out certain certifications, different certifications, and then go through the process of gaining those certifications. I went through the process of getting my bachelor's, completing my bachelor's degree. You know, those type of things. And having done those things, usually at the time, it doesn't seem like it's a big deal. But then when you move on and your life starts changing and opportunities start coming, people start asking you, well, do you have this? What's your education level? And what is this? Do you have this? And so now that I'm a businessman, all of the time that I put in to get certified in the different areas that I've been certified in, MRT, recovery coach training through ICATA, human trafficking, certifications, when I was with the Hope Center, all of my different stops along the way have definitely not only helped me, but become information that allows people to say he knows what he's talking about.
Okay. And so what can Growing in Indie provide as a resource when it comes to reentry?
Now,
okay.
Now let me differentiate.
Okay.
Growing Indie LLC is my for-profit.
Okay.
The Growing Indie Group is the 501c3 not-for-profit.
Okay.
The 501c3 not-for-profit is what we're putting things out into the community. The Growing Indie LLC is how I make my money to pay my bills.
Okay.
So to answer your question, what the Growing Indie Group wants to do is we want to be the hub where, so we have service providers out there.
Okay.
Who provide, like PACE, we have Use What You Got Ministries, we have all kinds of entities out here that want to help people coming home from incarceration.
Okay.
Unfortunately, people have been doing it the same way for so long that they don't realize that there needs to be a different way of providing reentry services.
Okay.
And that's what we hope to do, is to provide alternative, transparent services of reentry, where we're giving the person who is coming home from incarceration, allowing them to create their own plan.
Okay.
And maybe giving them a little guidance to say, okay, well, maybe along with this plan that you've created, maybe you need to include this or include that or whatever. And so we're just kind of helping them along, as opposed to a lot of these other agencies that have been doing this for quite some time are telling them what they need to do. And the worst thing that you can do to a person who has been incarcerated is tell them what they need to do. Why? Because while they were incarcerated, that's all they ever heard, was people telling them what they needed to do.
Yeah.
You need to be in bed at this time. You need to go piss when this time. When this bell rings, you need to do this. You need to do that. And so for you to come home and people start telling you, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. It's almost like that complex where if you tell me what to do, I'm going to do the opposite.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's the difficulty. And so what we do at the Growing Indie Group, we're trying to make sure that people understand, hey, we're here to help.
Yeah.
We're not here to tell you how to fix yourself.
Yeah.
We're here to let you figure it out on your own, because that's the only way that it's going to stay. Sure, people can say, hey, these are your suggestions, do this, do that. You may do that for a little while, but if it wasn't your idea, you're going to kind of stray away from it.
Yeah.
If it was your idea, then I can always come back at you and say, well, it's not working. So why do you think that is? And that's part of motivational interviewing as well. You always allow for the individual to make the plan, so that when you come back to them, you put the onus back on them and say, well, this is not my plan, this is your plan. So why is your plan not working? Let's figure that out. And then they don't feel some kind of way. Like, oh man, I'm failing. It's no, you're not failing. We just need to rethink this. Now, how do we go around this obstacle? Life is full of obstacles. Life is full of barriers.
Right.
How do we get around them?
Yeah. So it sounds like the Growing Indie Group is an accountability partner, a support system to help people going through reentry. Is that correct?
Reentry, rebuilding, and recovery.
See, I'm paying attention.
That's right. That's right.
So let's talk about your organization, because I recently have been asked
Absolutely.
to come along. And so tell them, about your board, about the people that partner with you, and all of that.
So the beauty of the Growing Indie Group is that everyone on our board wears two different hats. Mm-hmm. One hat, of course, is strictly the Growing Indie Group. Their other hats are what they do in their real life. So just like yourself, you have Lipstick Entertainment.
Yeah.
I've watched you for years do what you do, and you do it well.
Thank you.
I've watched Mila Eldridge, our Marion County clerk, do what she does in terms of the voting and the political side of with her her recent addition as the vice chair of the Democratic Party. She's also the chair of the Criminal Justice Committee, as well as Julie Fiddler, who is our grants and acquisitions person. Julie is the executive director of the J. Waters Conflict Mediation, Conflict Resolution Clinic. We have Danina Smith Foster, who is the CEO of Vision Wealth Group, who deals with substance abuse and all of those things. We have Miss Rhonda Battles, who is an MSW, Masters of Social Work, who works alongside Miss Danina Foster, Smith Foster, as the behavioral health and mental health and wellness person. So everyone that is on our board have different responsibilities. We have Chris Simmons, who works with Indy Reads, so that's the education part of it. We have Ann DeSisti, who is with CareSource. CareSource provides all kinds of services for people who are in reentry as well. We have Crystal Rose. Crystal Rose works with the Bail Project. So, you know, everyone on our board, we have Miss Icy Hinton, who was the chief financial officer for U.S. Customs for 40 years. And she's our treasury and financial person. We have our board chair, who Miss Patricia Turley, who is the professor at IU of African American Studies, who also has a master's in philanthropy. I have surrounded myself in our organization with individuals like yourself, who have been successful in what they do, and so now what we're doing is just collectively coming together and being successful as a unit and as a force to be reckoned with.
So what can people expect moving forward? You got everybody that you need.
Yes.
You got your superheroes with you.
Yes.
What can the world expect from us?
Well, one of the things that we want to do more of is we want to recognize that it's important to deal with families. A lot of times we want to deal with individuals. And when you deal with an individual, we want, yeah, that's great, but that individual is going to then go back to a family situation. And if there's no support in the family structure, then all the things that you poured into that individual will be poured out, you know, because they're going back to a negative situation at home. And so what we want to do is bring the families in and not only help the individual, but help the families as well as a unit. We want to get back to that. There's been too much individuality, I think, in the world today. I would like to see some training evolve where when someone's on their way into the prison system, someone talks to the family about the importance of understanding what that's going to look like. Mm-hmm. Suppose they're not able to get in touch with their loved one. What do you do? Who do you call? Where do you go? You know, sharing those type of things. We want to make sure that the service providers that are providing information and education to individuals when they're coming home understand the mental health piece enough so that when they're dealing with individuals who are justice involved or who have been justice involved, that they realize that you may be dealing with someone with co-occurring disorders in terms of, you know, there may be some mental health issues, there may be some drug abuse, there may be, you know, all kinds of things, self-medicating, those type of things. So as a service provider, you have to understand that you're not just dealing with a regular person. You're not just dealing with someone who you could tell them this and then all of a sudden that they're going to digest it in the normal way.
Right.
If you've come from incarceration and you've had some kind of post-traumatic distress, you're taking in information differently. Mm-hmm. And so we want to provide training for those service providers so that they can more so deal with those individuals coming from the demographic of the individuals that they serve in a better way.
Recently, you had an amazing award show, and we were even nominated as well as awarded.
Yes.
Go ahead and tell everybody about that and what that will also look like in the future.
Okay, this is one of the things that I'm just really proud of, because it was an idea that has been in the making for almost 10 years. And I was really kind of hesitant because there were so many agencies and entities out here that I thought, well, I can't do that because they're supposed to do that, or, you know. And so what we did was we decided that we wanted to honor not just individuals coming home from incarceration who have done well, but we wanted to honor the service providers and all of the people along the way that aided and assisted them to achieve their greatness. And so many individuals, I mean, when I started making the list, I said, okay, we can't forget this person. So at first the list was like about 15 people.
Okay.
That, you know, those were people who had been incarcerated, who have come home and they've done well. Mm-hmm. And then I said, well, if we're honoring them, how do we just honor them and not honor the people that stood them up and gave them that crutch and gave them that leg up, you know? And so we started honoring the service providers. Then we said, well, how can we honor the service providers without honoring the agencies that they worked for?
Yeah.
And so we started, we ended up honoring almost about 60 individuals. Mm-hmm. You know, we had a certain amount of individuals coming home from incarceration. We had individuals that were service providers. We had agencies. And then, of course, we had our voices of reentry, people who speak whenever they get an opportunity and they get a platform. They talk about reentry. They talk about the barriers. They talk about the things that are important, moving in reentry forward and moving reentry into its next phase. And so it was great. This was a virtual award ceremony, and we are just so eager and looking forward, and we've already started looking at the individuals that we're going to honor next year. Of course, yourself, you were one of the individuals who were honored this year. And the main thing about the award ceremony that we had was it was an opportunity to honor the people who rarely get recognition, the people that were behind the scenes, the people that do things like Lipstick Entertainment. I don't know how much a lot of people know about Lipstick Entertainment, but I was there when Lipstick Entertainment was gathering together water to take to when the Flint, Michigan crisis was going on about the water being bad, and all of the Christmas gifts and the kids that you guys have helped. And so those were the people that I look back and say, why aren't these people being uplifted? Why aren't these people being honored for what the real work that they're doing? And so we decided, the Growing Indie Group decided that, you know what, let's do it. Let us honor these individuals. And so we did, and it was phenomenal. We had a total of 180 people who signed up and registered for the event. At the actual event, there were some people that it wasn't quite 180. I think it was like 120 the day of. And then, but it was consistent. I mean, everyone that I've talked to was just so thrilled and so appreciative of the fact that we did this. And so now, next year, we want to do this in person. Mm-hmm. We want to make this a black tie event. Mm-hmm. Of course, we had a lot of dignitaries. We had our president of City County Council, Bob Osley, was there. We had the current and sitting director of reentry, Carlette Duffy. We had the police chief, Randy Taylor, deputy chief, Kendall Adams. You know, there were just so many people who really thought that this was just a wonderful idea. Teresa Wessel of Horizon House, and, you know, some of the nominees and the agencies, Ken Johnson, former pastor of the Colts, you know, Reverend Eugene Potter, who's been in reentry for like 30 years. We just honored everyone that had something to do with reentry. Next year, black tie event, formal gowns for the ladies. You know, we're looking to possibly get maybe a J.W. Marriott to donate a space for us. In order to do this, we're reaching out to the mayor and the governor early enough. You know, we got a year. Right. You know, so we get on their schedule. Yeah. But this is something that what a lot of people don't realize is this is something that's never been done before in the city of Indianapolis. And so this is why it was so well received, and I'm just really excited about what next year is going to bring. The awards are wonderful. If you did get an opportunity to see awards, if you can go on Facebook and go on Richard Samuels' page, You could see some of the awards that were passed out. They were phenomenal.
Yeah. I will say, me personally, just being in community support the way that I have for 11 years now, to be recognized for it was amazing. So thank you so much for that. And I am looking forward to next year. My dress is going to be bad. It's going to be bad.
And we appreciate you. And like I said, this was so amazing. And the reason it was so amazing because also in recognizing these individuals, it also gave us the opportunity to partner with these individuals. And so now our collaborative capabilities are endless, with all of the individuals, not only who were honored, but are now saying, hey, we want to rock with the Growing Indie Group. We are so thrilled to have you come on board because you, of course, will be our media person. You're going to be the one that is going to be putting things out there on Facebook, Instagram, all of that stuff that I know nothing about.
I got you.
And so, definitely just really glad to have you.
Thank you.
And I'm just so impressed with your expertise and the way that you deliver your product, you know what I mean? And also, we will be backing and supporting every step of the way Lipstick Entertainment as well.
That's so awesome. That's why we so.
Come on now.
Listen,
come on.
They don't know.
Right. I'm telling you. This is, and this is what I'm talking about, Ryan. Developing the relationships and having them be true.
Yeah.
It's one thing to have a relationship, but it's another thing when the relationship works and that I don't have to worry about what you're doing because I'm going to say, Ryan, you're the media person. Do your thing because that's what we've watched you do.
Yeah.
And so that's what you're good at.
Right.
So I don't have to worry about that anymore.
Right.
Same thing with Mila. Mila, we're trying to get the vote in. A lot of people don't understand. We're also trying to advocate for a political push.
Okay.
We want to bring all of the individuals who are ex-offenders or who have been justice involved together and create a voting block that can decide who's going to be our next mayor, that can decide who's going to be our state representatives when the elections come. So it's not a shoo-in because this is name recognition only. When we have the Andre Carsons and all the other individuals who are running, if we see that they're doing the right thing and that they've been supporting us, we want to then take that block of individuals and get behind that individual and make sure that they stay in office to continue to do the good work that they've been doing. Or if it's been someone who has not been doing the work that we feel like they should have been doing, then we vote them out of office and put the person in there that we feel is necessary. Stacey Abrams showed us that in Georgia, where when they had the runoff and those individuals were elected and they turned red states to blue. You know what I mean? So we have the capability of doing those things, and I'm just really excited about the power that individuals coming home from incarceration, once they get it in their head that they're not still broken and that they're not still struggling, we have to come into our own to understand that nobody's going to give us anything. If we work hard enough for it, we can change that narrative that says we're broken and need to be fixed, and not only change it to the point of success, but to then be transparent enough to say not only are we going to be successful, but we're going to be a force to be reckoned with in terms of change in our city.
What are some things that we can look forward to the Growing Indie Group doing moving forward?
So there are training is going to be one of the biggest things. We want to provide training for a lot of other agencies. We're looking to become the agency that people go to figure out how do you do this.
Okay.
Because we have individuals with lived experience, we have all of these other individuals that I talked about, and they're the things that they do, like Crystal Rose with the Bail Project. So anybody that comes to us, we have that wraparound services, and then we can make a warm handoff to other agencies to make sure that the person is getting the services that they need. But I'm telling you, it's about training and making sure that we're moving reentry into another level. It's great what's been provided so far, but there has to be some change and there has to be some emphasis on where the dollars are going, how the dollars are being spent, and making sure that the grant monies and the foundational monies and the funding opportunities are utilized in a way that take us to another level, to where people have the wherewithal and the opportunity to get their own vehicles, to get their housing is a big issue. Housing is another thing that we're going to concentrate on. Financial literacy, connecting the dots so that people understand. Civics is one of the most important things that people don't even think about when you talk about reentry. But if an individual doesn't understand how them going to work pays into when they pay their bills, now the economy is better and the infrastructure is better, you know, understanding and connecting those dots. When you get a person to understand the power of giving and their power that they have when they provide, they're paying their bills and doing those things, their accountability and their responsibility. When you get a person to understand that, now they feel like they belong. Now they feel connected to society. And so now they're trying to tell people, no, don't do that. That's not, you know, you don't want to do that. And they're telling their children, you know what I mean? Because now they're explaining it to their kids. You know, there are a lot of people that don't even know that their job matters to the community. You know, that when you pay a light bill or you pay a gas bill, that you're paying into something that's bigger than yourself. Yeah. You know, it helps all of us, you know, so, yeah.
You know, you said my slogan, right?
Yes. Come on now. We gotta, right.
Wait a minute, it's the power of giving.
Right.
I think you just said that.
That's right.
Well, I'm so excited moving forward to just work with you and bring the brand a little bigger, you know, in the social world, of course, and just, you know, hit the pavement running with you.
Right.
It's easy to talk about what needs to be done. It's easy to point the finger, but to actually get out there and do the work, that takes planning, yes, and that takes goals, and it takes a great team.
You know, we have, I really feel like we have one of the most phenomenal teams in the city that have been put together. People are just now beginning to realize not only that we're very well connected, but that, you know, we have a voice that people are listening to. Mm-hmm. I've been doing this work for 6 years now, mm-hmm, and people didn't know who I was. Right. You know, and I didn't care about people knowing who I was. We were just doing the work. And we were just watching other people do what they do. And, you know, that's how I met all of the people who are on my board. It's like, I've worked with them in some capacity at some point, you know, through Val Tate, through the Weekend program and Community Action in Greater Indianapolis, the work that we've done with individual African-American young men, 18 to 26 years old, providing MRT services and all of those things, providing them stipends to live off of while they were getting their educations. You know, there's just been so many individuals that I've worked alongside, and I saw their sincerity of they are trying to really bridge the gap of the things that people don't know about our young people. Our young people have just been, I think, overlooked because there's so much negativity on TV about what's happening, and so many oftentimes, like with your shootings and all that, you find out the ages are getting younger and younger. Yes. Unfortunately, one of the other things that we're looking at is like that no one has thought about. We were thinking about this 2 years ago. Why has there been such an increase in women dying? Mm. You know, these are the conversations that we are having behind the scenes, and we're talking about these. We're having these roundtable discussions amongst ourselves, amongst our staff, and we're talking about, okay, so how do we implement and what do we implement in order to try to change this, or if not change it, bring the awareness to individuals at IMPD, and so that they will understand that this is something that they really need to be looking at. You know, so many of our young men have been sent off to incarceration, breaking down the family unit. Now the mom is being sent away or being killed or is absent from the family. Yeah. What does that leave the kids? Right. You know, and so we've got to be mindful of what's happening in our community and make sure that we're addressing the things that are tearing the fabric of our families apart.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on and just sharing your story, what's going on with the organization and where it's going. I want everyone to be mindful of the Growing Indie Group page. on Facebook. It's been around, but it's going to get a new face, and we're going to do some different things, or it's going to grow differently than what it was. Let's say that.
Okay.
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 and I hesitate because actually you've got your work cut out for you, because the page that we have is Growing Indie, which is the LLC.
Oh.
There is no Growing Indie group page. That's what you're going to create.
I got to do the whole thing.
Absolutely.
But just know it's coming, and it's going to be amazing.
Absolutely.
Okay, go ahead, follow and find Richard Samuels, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Take care.